Hi, I'm Selena from Annie's Bookstop of Worcester, and I'm here with Adora Winquist. And Adora is a nonfiction writer, and I'm going to let Adora tell you a little bit for readers unfamiliar with your work. I'm going to let you tell people about what you write.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Selena. It's a pleasure to be here with you, especially since you're in Worcester, in Massachusetts, where I've spent so much of my life and, in fact, lived not too far outside of Worcester in Hudson, Mass. For a number of years. But essentially, kind of going back along those lines, where I started my journey as a healer and as an essential oil formulator and as an entrepreneur was actually in Massachusetts, in Cape Cod. And so I started first studying hands-on healing with Reiki. And my first class was in New Hampshire, which is such a beautiful area. And when I received my first attunement, I started to see colors around people. And I was shocked and also amazed. And I thought, I really want to experience more of this. And so I started using Reiki on myself and then anyone in my family that was open to it. And I saw really significant shifts from an emotional perspective, from a mental perspective, and of course, from the perspective of our physiology and physical health and well-being. And so I started to study a number of forms of energy medicine or vibrational healing, while at the same time, I started to work with plant medicine. In fact, I have a bit of a funny story of how when I was first living on Cape Cod, I was 19 and I didn't have a lot of money and I didn't have health insurance. And every year I would get bronchitis twice a year brought about by allergies. And I was really quite sick. And because I couldn't afford to go to the doctor and get medicine, I was really at a loss. And somewhere I heard something about herbs. And I went to a store on Cape Cod, forget the name of the town. And I think it was outside, like near Chatham, and bought 5 different herbs: hyssop, thyme, eucalyptus, licorice root, and fresh ginger. And I went home and I made a tea, and I was amazed by how quickly I healed. And since then, many moons later, I still have not had bronchitis. In fact, I get so many queries for that formula, I included it in the book. It's in the Heart Activate chapter of the Detox, Nourish, Activate book.
Okay. Can we stop here for a second?
Yeah.
Can you tell people exactly what your book is now? Can you?
Yes, definitely. Sure. So the title of my book is Detox, Nourish, Activate, Plant and Vibrational Medicine for Energy, Mood, and Love. And it's co-authored with my ally with the plants, Dr. Lulu Shemek, who is a naturopathic physician. And so it is rich with 11 different types of alchemical intervention, including essential oils, including herbalism, including nutrition and crystal healing, to bring balance and quantum levels of healing, holographic healing to and through our DNA. And so a little bit more kind of going back to that aspect of my journey. Once I started working with the herbs, I eventually found essential oils, and I knew that I was at home. There was almost a familiarity for me about working with the essential oils. And so I started mixing and blending and created my first essential oil-based business in the mid-90s on Cape Cod as well. And so my journey from there really expanded, starting a healing practice, many more products with that business that through the years changed names to Olbis Gaia and then Adora Therapy, which became a award-winning national essential oil company. for blends known as for chakra balancing and energy clearing, which was really in such a alignment with my two passions, right? Essential oils, plant medicine, and vibrational healing. And my journey with vibrational healing then took me to the Barbara Brennan School of Healing, which I attended and then graduated from also quite a few years ago, where I'm now an instructor for their Hands of Light workshop, which is a wonderful program and offering for those that are interested in the 4-year university, but maybe need and desire to know a little bit more about the potency of vibrational medicine. And so my journey has been, I would say, interesting in the sense that it's taken me to, this is my 7th state that I've lived in and also operated a business in. And it's also quite simple in the regard that it incorporates or focuses on the healing potency from the natural world, right? From the plant kingdom, from the mineral kingdom, because I do a lot of work with crystals. And then of course, from a vibrational perspective, whether I'm working with clients or whether I'm teaching a group facilitation or whether I'm doing my weekly meditation series.
Okay.
So, mm-hmm.
So what can readers expect from the book, from your book?
Great question. So when my colleague and I a few years ago started to discuss the idea of co-creating this book, we started to look at our own clients and, in her case, patients, to see what are the common threads that people are coming to us to find relief, whether it's from a chronic disease process or an emotional balance, or from those patterns in our life that keep repeating themselves, but not necessarily in the way that we want to see them manifest. And so what are these aspects from a subconscious perspective that are playing out in our lives that we're not exactly able to harness and modulate in the way that we want to? And of course, we brought our focus inward, right? Because I believe in one of the tenets of philosophy from the Brennan School is that you can only take your client as far as you've gone in your own healing journey. And so when I started to go through my own process of writing for this book, it was going through over 20 years of journals, of client notes, of formulas, of introspection from my own healing process, and going through all of the levels of self-awareness and self-understanding that arose for me during my own journey. And so it's rich with a lot of the, I would like to say, psycho-spiritual tenets of philosophy, esoteric philosophy, and then of course the wisdom from the plant kingdom, the wisdom from the mineral kingdom, and the animal medicine, spirit medicine too, as well as some beautiful aspects of sacred geometry and meditation and mudras. And so one thing we wanted to do was to make a guidebook that not put us in the perspective of being gurus, right? That shared aspects of our own journey of healing to invite that level of common ground, right? And of understanding that every one of us have had challenges or adversity along our path to the path of self-mastery, to the path of self-actualization. So how do we transform those places of deep trauma within us to be able to manifest our soul's deepest longings, to be able to actualize what we've actually come into this lifetime to not only create, but to experience and heal from? And so the book has a really beautiful aspect of discovery dives that everyone, the reader, can do at their own pace to look at places of trauma within. And one of the things that I like to call is the treasure map of our early childhood dynamics. And that treasure map has all of the aspects that we've come into this incarnation to be able to heal and grow and expand our awareness, and then ultimately expand our consciousness. And so it creates a pathway, or illuminates a guiding way for the reader to be able to move through and detox, nourish, and activate. And one of the aspects that's really important about this, and I kind of liken it to, imagine you go to your local health food store or Whole Foods, and you spend a few $100s getting the most delightful things that you know are going to nourish you physically, emotionally, in terms of your diet, in terms of your self-care, in terms of your nutrition. And you take them home and you open the refrigerator, but the fridge is filled and almost overflowing with rotting food, right? So what benefit is all of this beauty and resource and healing that you brought home? Where will you put it, right? Where is there space for it? And I know it's a bit of an interesting analogy, but I think it fits, because until we're able to look inside, be honest and authentic with ourselves first, and be able to let go of the places that limit us, right? Whether it's a belief system, whether it's memories from past trauma, whether it's emotional patterning or mental constructs or images that we hold that we believe we just can't be more, have more, right? Have more joy, have more vitality, have more success, have more abundance. So going in and being able to let go of the old ways creates the space for us to birth anew, right? To be able to then nourish the aspects of our being that are being called for love and self-care and deep compassion, and in many times forgiveness, and to bring that love inward, so then we can activate our soul's deepest desires and longings, those things that we've come into this life that really encapsulate the expression of our highest selves, or what I like to refer to as our quintessence, our essence, and that unique light and gift that only we have to bring to the world. And I firmly believe that each and every step along our journey has guided us perfectly here and now, right? To be able to distill those greater aspects of who we are with the light of divine consciousness, with the strength of the earth and all of the kingdoms of life and healing, right, from the nature intelligence, to help us co-create and transform our lives to one of thriving, right? To take those places where we're in survival mode and turn them into thriving, and what I like to call quantum living.
So what do you think would draw readers to these kinds of books? For this kind
I think a deep desire for change.
Okay.
If you're feeling a calling within you where the things that you've tried haven't brought you the level of change or sustainable shifts that you're looking for. If you feel like you've tried everything and you're still repeating the same pattern, if you're deeply fatigued or in a place of heartbreak, or your mood is filled with more aspects of depressive energy or anxious energy or lack of clarity, right? And when we talk about plant and vibrational medicine for energy, mood, and love, it's really because we went through and looked at all of the aspects of our clients and ourselves to say, what are the three primary areas and drivers for a life that is thriving in terms of vibrancy and well-being and abundance? And so energy, mood, and love, which relates into energy with the adrenal system. So for the exploration on the adrenals, we have the aspects of detox, nourish, and activate, rich with 11 different types of alchemical interventions to support each level of that system. And then for love, coming into our heart space, being able to release patterns of grief, betrayal, heartache, loss, right? Where maybe we've had relationships that haven't served us in the highest way, right? And where we long to be deeply and authentically loved, seen, understood, embraced. I mean, we all long for that, I think, on the deepest levels.
Mhm.
And so coming into the heart system from an energetic, from a physiological, from all of the aspects of psychodynamics, right, that interplay with that, are paramount to us having love in the deepest and most intimate and healthiest of ways. And then when we explore the areas of mood, it's connecting into the brain and connecting into the nervous system, right?
Mhm.
And so if you look at these also from an energetic perspective, right, we're looking at the connection to the root chakra, our connection to the earth from the adrenal system. And of course, you know, we see so many people today with adrenal fatigue, right? With deep levels of exhaustion from not only the experiences, you know, we can look at the acute experiences of the past year and a half, but of stress, of chronic stress, acute stress, trauma, and of course, of the environmental stress that we all have, and the consummate juggle that we have to be able to make ends meet for ourselves and our family and for our loved ones, right? And so
Yes.
the adrenal system, I think, is certainly not embraced in discussion enough to be able to come in and bring the rich botanicals and essential oils and energetic nourishment that we so deeply crave and long for. And so I think from this perspective, anyone that feels like they have been traveling down this dead end road, or I like to say too, it's like, because I felt like this personally for many years before my own spiritual awakening, I was feeling a calling within me that I knew that there was something more. There was something more that I could experience in life. There was something more that I could be, even though I didn't feel that that was necessarily possible at that point. But somewhere within me, there was a voice, even though it was dim, it was quiet, right? I couldn't hear it as strongly as I do now, but it was there. And I think if we all listen to ourselves a little bit more deeply, we can all hear that voice.
Mhm.
And the more that we engage in ways that are honoring of ourselves and others, the louder that voice becomes, the clearer that voice becomes, because we all have a tremendous amount of infinite innate wisdom within us.
Okay. So what kind of research went into writing the book?
So
Think
that's a
about the
great
book
question.
itself.
Yeah. So again, my main research was going through 20 years of, gosh, so many journals of all of my notes and my personal experience from not only clients, but my own journey going through the study of all of these different modalities, and especially my time at the Barbara Brennan School of Healing. And, you know, I think that there are some wonderful visionaries and thought leaders also in these fields, right? In the field of botanical medicine, in the field of aromatherapy, in the field of crystals, crystal healing,
Yeah.
and many different aspects of vibrational medicine. So, and I would have to say that for me, the biggest key in unlocking my ability to write was being able to go in and listen to that voice within me. And when I would sit and write about the essential oils, I would go into that place of deep communion with my own inner wise one and listen for all of the information that came through. And that's how I wrote about all of those sections. And you know, the really funny thing was I can remember going through one of my journals from, gosh, at least 10, maybe 15 years ago, where I had had a reading and told that I was going to write a book. And in that reading, a few times it was said, your journey isn't about as much as going in and reading other people's work on this field. Your journey is to go within and access and open that innate wisdom and ancient wisdom that you carried through many different lifetimes. And so it was a process for me to be able to actually connect into that and trust my voice. And I think that's such a powerful teaching of the book, is that everything that we need to heal deeply is within us. And even if that's the point of magnetizing the allies and connection in our lives that can bring us through the next steps of relationship and healing and deepening our understanding and awareness.
Mm-hmm. Now, what was the actual inspiration for this particular book?
So the inspiration really came from one of my clients, and it was actually a client and both myself and Dr. Lulu, who said, your work is really so extraordinary, and wouldn't it be wonderful if you came together and brought both of the aspects of wisdom and education and, you know, the decades of experience that you have, if you came together and wrote a book. And we both thought, gee, you know, we have such wonderful synergy. And Dr. Lulu's beautiful expertise in genetic health, and from a naturopathic perspective, and from a botanical perspective, and the physicality, which is so imperative to our sustainable healing, converged with my aspects of energetic and psycho-spiritual healing with the essential oils. Like, what a wonderful synergy, and which is one of the reasons that we talk about infinity or infinite healing. And you'll see throughout the manuscript, there's a number of infinity symbols. And this is really multifaceted, right? From our intention and purpose. One, to say, listen, we can't just get there from one pathway, right? We can't make these incredible quantum shifts in consciousness and our physicality and our emotional resilience and our mental clarity by taking just one of the pathways. And so the infinity healing is all about combining the aspects of what we need from a physical level, right? Clean water, exercise, nutrition, right? The remedies that have that biochemical aspect that we're working, right, with the plants, with the teas, with the tinctures, and combining that with the energetic aspects that work at bringing understanding to our subconscious patterning, that brings awareness to areas of trauma that we've experienced, not just in our life, but what we've carried through our lineage, through our DNA, generation by generation by generation. And all of the different aspects of vibrational medicine bring us to the convergence point in the center, which is that 0 point field of limitless potential and limitless creation. And so if you think of it from the perspective of our DNA, and each one of the trillions and trillions of cells that we have in our body, each one imprinted with intelligence, each one imprinted with every experience that we've ever had physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually from the point of conception. That alone is miraculous, right? And how our cells communicate with each other through light, right? Biophotons. And so that really speaks to the holographic nature of healing, that we're not just addressing healing from our auric level or from our cellular level, right? It's, again, going from that infinite perspective. And so the next level of consideration is that our cells that contain our DNA and imprinted with all of our experiences are also imprinted with every experience that our mother has had, and our father, right? Physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, and their mothers and fathers, and so on throughout our lineage and generation by generation. And so then it really brings another level of understanding that we are these incredibly powerful walking miracles that have the ability to harness the potency of the present moment, with our connection to the earth, our support, with the higher levels of consciousness, right? As above, so below, with the power of our intention, and then co-creating quantum levels of healing with all of these aspects of alchemy, right? With the essential oils, with the herbs, and with all of the other mediums that we talk about throughout the book.
Okay. Can we expect another book from you in the future?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I've already started on my next book. I have a couple of ebooks that we're working on right now, one on essential oil alchemy, one on crystal alchemy. But the next book that I think will be of a little bit more substance is going to be on sacred relationship and the alchemy of sacred relationship. Again, working with essential oils, working with crystals, and it's going to come from, I have a trip that's coming up in September, a Mary Magdalene retreat in the south of France. And a few years ago, I was asked to take a group of like-minded souls, seekers, to this area to retrace the footsteps of Mary Magdalene and connect with the deep resource of mysticism and the energies of the divine feminine in this area. And so the teachings from this program that's coming up in September are going to be very much focused on sacred relationship. And when we're able to heal our trauma at that core level, at the level of our DNA, we can open to such wondrous abilities of being able to give and receive love, and to be able to connect in with sacred relationship in ways that create a powerful alchemical container to create beyond limitation, and to create from a place of positive intention where otherwise it could take years or a lifetime to create certain aspects of this miracle consciousness that is palpable from deep levels of sacred relationship. So I'm really excited to work on that. And also to, of course, I have an idea of where that's going to go, which will really be expanded on from the time in France in September.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay, now I have some questions for you on being a writer. Okay.
Sure.
What's your favorite part of being a writer on the whole writing and publishing process?
Well, I would say that my favorite part is being able to access that deep reservoir of authentic voice, of truth, of divine connection that exists within. And I've always loved writing. Ever since I think I started writing some of my first poetry when I was about 18. And it was rather dark during that time for many years from that point. But now that I've been able to move through a lot of my own layers of healing and also move through the resistance. One of the biggest challenges for me as a writer in the process of writing this book was moving through the resistance and being able to put my bottom in the chair and sit there, even if I had to wait for quite a while for the words to come. And in the beginning, it was like that. It was frustrating. And now it's easy. Now I write every day for my platform and for different, periodicals or magazines or digital content, and it comes so much easier. And I also know that the healing journey for me is a direct correlate to that. Right. And so the more that I was able to clear my being and heal those parts of my own shadow, my own resistance, or my own darkness, right, my own struggles, my own pain, all of that really, the more open I became and the more I could listen to that voice within me. And so now it's much easier. And not to say that in each and every moment it's easy, but it really is so much more so.
And I guess you kind of answered my next question, which is what do you consider the most challenging part of the writing process? So you just answered that.
Yeah.
What has been
I
your
actually had to make a formula. I had to make a formula called resistance release because I was so in my own way. It was maddening. So I created a formula for that.
So what's been your favorite adventure during your writing career?
Wow. That's a really great question. I would say that my favorite adventure has been to be able to share from a place of vulnerability. And it's been an adventure because I was so fearful of doing that. And I realized that there was really no other way through for me. And if I had the intention for this book to be a truly revolutionary guide for healing and for awakening and for transformation, I had to move through my own adventure of discomfort for that. Most of my writing was done in a beautiful, beautiful office of my old house. And so I had tremendous inspiration, but I also took my writing on the road with my partner who's in the military. And so I did quite a bit of writing in hotels. And I am an old school writer, so I can always be found with at least one journal with the paper a bit crumpled. It's not a necessarily beautiful process, but for me, I love the art of physically writing, and I've always been that way. It's always been really the easiest way for me to get my thoughts and feelings and emotions out has been to put them on paper. It's very cathartic for me. And journaling is one of the things that we talk about in the book as a recommendation to be able to find your own authenticity, your own inner voice, and give yourself the permission and the freedom and the safety to be able to share how you truly feel on paper.
So what's the greatest lesson you've learned so far in your writing career?
In my writing career, trust that, and I think that this, it's been a similar lesson in my career as an entrepreneur, in my career as a product formulator, in my career as a healer, that if you don't trust yourself, you're never going to live your own life. Because everyone is going to have an opinion and a way that they think that you should do something, write something, what you should say and how you should say it. But to be fully free is giving yourself the permission to be wholly who you are, and to know that you're not going to be for everyone. And not everyone's going to necessarily like what you say or every product. Or resonate with you for services, and they may not agree with you, but that's okay, right? And I think the more that we can come to that deep place of communion with the inner wise one within, with that spark of divinity and sovereignty that exists within us all, that unites us all, and we can speak from that place, it is incredibly liberating. And also, our vulnerability is how we can connect in with each other to be able to trust each other, right? And so that was a really big piece of the book for readers to be able to say, well, okay, so Adora says this, is possible or probable, but where is her experience? Where is her voice? Where is her heart within this, right? And that's how we connect with each other. That's how we heal together, is by sharing our truths from a place of vulnerability. Because we all have places of, whether you want to call it adversity or struggle or pain, or suffering or loss or heartache, right? That's what unites us as humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And yet we can all rise above that. And when we can do that in community, we can do it in such a potently powerful way. And that's how we create the world that we deeply desire to see and all of the changes therein.
Mm-hmm. So what piece of advice would you want to give to other writers?
Step one, affix bottom to chair.
Yes.
That's step one. You know, in the aspects of our resistance, like, know that we all have resistance and embrace it, right? Because every time that when you first start writing and you're like, I have this really great idea, I'm going to write this book, or I'm going to write this article. And then you sit down and you're like, oh, I think I should really go put the laundry in the dryer, or I really need to go clean out that closet right now, or, you know, something really abstract. Know that that's going to happen. And, you know, like, just be okay with it. Be compassionate with yourself. And also, you know, make it fun. Laugh at yourself. Like, yeah, that resistance is just, I don't need to do that right now, but I do need to sit down. And if I want to write this book, I know that I need to sit down and shut out a lot of things, right? I found that in the writing of this book, it consumed me in far greater ways than I ever anticipated. I really had to close and often lock myself in my office, away from the children, away from the laundry, away from dinner many nights, and really go so deeply within, and really honor that process. So honoring the process is so important, and trusting your voice, trusting your idea, trusting yourself. And I think, you know, whether you decide as an author you want to find a publisher, which Dr. Lulu and I did quite successfully when we were giving a conference in London 2 years ago. We found our publisher, Aeon Books, a beautiful group of people to work with. And I've also self-published on another project where I have a pen name. So there are different ways that you can do it. It's not just one way, and you have to find the way that's right for you and that honors what your work is, what your voice is, and what your goal is, right? In terms of who you want your reader to be and what expansiveness you want for your message and your book to get out there.
Mm-hmm. Great. Now I have some questions about you as a person. What is one thing that most people don't realize about you?
My birth name is Dorothy.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah, my birth name is Dorothy. Most people don't know that unless they're friends from my hometown in Schenectady, New York, where I just was last week. And I think that most people wouldn't necessarily say that I'm an introvert, but I am deeply introverted. And I love being at home with my books, with my notebooks, with my essential oils, with my crystals, with my beloved, and with my children. Like, that is my just happy sanctuary. I would probably spend every day between being at home and being out in nature barefoot, if I could, and being in the water, being in the sea. So I think those are things typically people tend to see, oh, you seem very extroverted, or you very much, you know, love being out in the world. I love my work. And you know, this has been such a part of my work. When I was going through my journals, I realized for over 20 years, I've been saying essentially the same thing in many regards, in terms of DNA and what's possible, what's infinite within us, and what's possible when we heal. Yet I had to distill that message within myself through my own healing journey. So I'd say that that's a few things that most people wouldn't know or necessarily expect.
Oh, great. So what is or are your passions when you're not writing? And how do you make time for your non-writing, or for your non-writing hobbies and things that you love?
I love cooking. cooking, like in domestic family life, I find really grounding, because I have such a deep, like my work, my writing, my essential oil formulation, my work with my clients and teaching, I know is my sole purpose, right? And then supporting other people to excavate and elevate their sole purpose is a deep passion of mine. And so left to my own devices, I would spend more time working than I actually do, and I work a lot. So finding balance for me is always of great importance. And so my children and my partner are really grounding in that way, reminding me to step away and let's go to the pool, or I love to play tennis. I was very athletic as a child and adolescent and young adult, and that's another thing that most people probably wouldn't associate with me. I was a total tomboy. So cleanup batter and softball, played tennis, basketball. I mean, all of these things. I'm very much like a tomboy would find, love climbing a tree or out in the creek catching crayfish, which I spent many summers doing as a youth, and a little bit of time this past week when I was on Martha's Vineyard. It felt really wonderful to take my children out there and show them, like, this is how you hang out in a creek, and these are the things that you look for, and here's this great toad, and here's how we can connect with the moss and the flowers and the birds. And so yeah, nature is really balancing for me. And so always finding that kind of work, family, nature balance is definitely of such importance.
And you just kind of brought up something when you mentioned Martha's Vineyard. How important has the New England setting been to your writing?
Well, I have to tell you that even though I grew up in upstate New York and now in Asheville, North Carolina, this is the 7th state that I've lived in. The majority of my life, I've lived in Massachusetts. So I spent 10 years on Cape Cod, which is where I started my healing journey, my entrepreneurial journey, my own awakening, and really, quite truthfully, my own healing crisis happened on Cape Cod with very severe endometriosis, which after numerous surgeries and hospitalizations, my physician at 21 wanted to do a hysterectomy. And so I knew that I was to have 2 children. And so I said no. And that really brought me deeper into my path as a healer, from using all of these alternative methods for myself. And so from that perspective, the Cape was very transformational for me and very deeply healing. And then Massachusetts, I mean, the vineyard is incredibly beautiful. But I spent 3 wonderful years in Hudson, Mass. And really that was part of my time when I was in the Barbara Brennan School of Healing. So really, even though I had a healing practice and a product business, my healing focus was inward. And so, when I was in Boston about a week ago doing a book signing event, it just felt so beautiful to go back there. I mean, Boston for me was where I had my first corporate job at 19 in the accounting department at a law firm near South Station. So much of my formative time as an entrepreneur, working in the business world, formulating my first products, my own healing journey, my first healing clients were on Cape Cod. And so I just love the area. In fact, I'm already planning to be out next year, and we're working on some book signing events next year, next summer there. So I'll be looking forward to getting back, not just to Boston, but to the Cape and the vineyard too. It is truly magical there.
Great.
Yeah. And I also have to say one more thing that this just came to me. The 2 vacations, so to speak, that I took in the past probably 10 plus years were both in Massachusetts, one a few weeks ago and one about a year and a half ago on the Cape. And both of those vacations, my mother this past one and my father the one before, were going through their transition time. And it's very interesting to me that, that occurred for both of them while I was in Massachusetts. And so I have such a deep connection, I think sacred bond to that land. And it has been such a place of transformation and healing and nourishment for me.
Wow. That's interesting. Yeah. I have some questions now about your writing space. What does your writing space look like, and what do you need to have around you when you're writing or editing? Do you need to have things, specific things to eat or drink?
I love this question. Okay, so for the majority of my time writing the book, I was in the office, beautiful, incredible space with probably looking out at maybe 50 miles of mountains from the window. And it was just absolutely incredible. And then in the editing process, the majority of that is in my new home, where my office these days is literally in the kitchen. So I have this very small area, and yet it's very comfortable. And some of the things that I always will have around me are my crystal allies, numerous crystal allies, my essential oils, because these are such an important part of the process, because through inhaling them, we can literally shift our emotion in the moment, our consciousness. We can open up so many different levels and dimensions of our being. And through all of this, we can learn to shift the trajectory of our emotional response when we're feeling resistance, when we're feeling like, oh gosh, I can't look at this 500-page manuscript one more time, and yet I must. So those things are really always here. And I always will have, I'm a big fan of Pellegrino. Some days I go through a few bottles of that. And
good to hydrate.
Yeah, it's good to hydrate. And of course, I can't keep everything in this latter part of middle age in my brain. And so thankfully I always have at least a few notebooks and pens by my side.
Okay. And when you're writing, do you prefer silence, or you like music? And if so, what kind of music?
Well, okay, this is kind of funny, maybe a little bit eccentric, but I like music. I like really loud music, and I generally will wear headphones because it helps me tune out the kids or the cats or anything else that's going on around me. But for me, loud music really helps me to focus. And the funniest thing is I love Sting. Through the process of the entire writing of this book and the majority of editing, I listened to probably the same 2 to 3 Sting albums over and over and over again. And it was like my Zen space. And, I know it's a little bit odd, but it absolutely worked for me.
And you just mentioned one of the other questions that I was going to ask you is, writers very often have furry or feathered or otherwise non-human companions to help them with their work. And obviously you do. And how do they help or not help you with your work?
I think that they're absolutely comic relief. And of course, they're so sweet and endearing, but the comic relief is fantastic. I have one that we have 2 cats, they're sisters. My 2 daughters, Lily and Violet, 12 and 7, just adore them and carry them around like babies, like they were when they were about the size of their hands. And now they're certainly far bigger than that, but they still carry them around and treat them like they're babies, which is hysterical. One of them thinks she's a dog. And the other one, because they don't go outside, likes to go on the back deck and then patrol on the roof. And so, the comedic aspects are just so helpful when, in those moments of overwhelm and frustration, and, I don't know how I'm going to read another or write another word or write another sentence that, seemingly is coherent and cohesive.
Right. Okay. I just have two more questions for you. One is, where can people find your work? And besides Annie's Bookstop of Worcester, and I always do this, and people are going to get so sick of me doing this. But Annie's Bookstop of Worcester, you can get any books, and we'll be holding Adora's book. If anybody wants to buy it, you can get it at our bookstore. But where can people find your work aside from Annie's Bookstop of Worcester?
Thank you. So AdoraWinquist.com, my website, has everything about my work, my products, my services, my complimentary meditations, which happen about 4 to 7 times a month. We have a blog that has a wonderful amount of information. We post anywhere from 1 to 2, sometimes 3 blogs a week, because I am very verbose, I guess is a kind way to say it. And then of course the social platforms on Insta and Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn at Adora Winquist. And we have a really beautiful dynamic team. My Infinity team does an incredible job with our graphics and with our posts and with maintaining our website, creating our new websites. My other site is called zenergymedicinals.com, and that's the site that myself and Dr. Lulu created. And then, of course, on YouTube, we have the Adora Winquist or the Zenergy Medicinals YouTube channel that is rich with beautiful meditations, complimentary. So there's so many ways that you can engage with the community, setting up a complimentary discovery session with me to see what might be good for you, how you want to come into the community and work with me or engage with the products, and ways that you can work for transformation and personal growth and empowerment.
Great. Well, you just answered both of my questions in one. My second question was,
awesome.
How can we follow your work and share your awesomeness? So,
thank you. Oh, you're so kind.
That was the second question. So that's all I have for you. And thank you very much for being with us today. And well, maybe the next time you get to the Boston area, you will come and visit.
Absolutely. I would love to, Selena. It's been such an honor being with you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.